Moonlight lay on the river like a silver mat. Ngozi rinsed cassava, her hands moving gentle and sure, woolly lines shining on her skin. Crickets sang. From the reeds, Obinna, the chief's son, watched in quiet wonder. He whispered, "This is the one," and the night held its breath. If you're watching this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and tell me in the comments where you're watching my folktale story from. I want to know how far it has traveled. I am the one telling you this tale, so listen well. Ngozi did not know eyes were on her. She only felt the cool water on her feet and the small joy of good work finished. She picked up her calabash and turned for home, still humming the song her mother taught her. In the tall grass, Obinna stepped back, heart beating fast, already planning to speak with the elders at dawn. Above them, a parrot shifted on a branch and clicked its beak like a tiny drum. In the village square, drums thudded, calling people to late dance. Smoke from cooking fires drifted low and sweet. Ngozi paused, sensing a change in the air she could not name. She hugged her wrapper close and hurried along the path. Behind her, the river kept her secret, and the moon followed her steps like a quiet witness. At dawn the chief's compound woke like a beehive. Goats bleated. Palm fronds clicked. The old men rubbed coral beads and cleared their throats. Women swept sand patterns before the gate. Obinna walked in with steady feet and a fire in his chest. He bowed and spoke, "Fathers, I will marry Ngozi, the cassava girl by the river." A rustle ran through the courtyard. Some smiled at his bold heart, others frowned at her poor name. By the wall, 7 friends stood together: Ada, Ifeananya, Oluchi, Obi, Lolo, Kem, and Chika. Their bracelets flashed, and their eyes spoke the thoughts their lips hid. Ada's jaw tightened. The others swallowed hard. The elders asked, "Are you sure?" Obinna nodded. "She is kind. Her hands are clean. My spirit rests when I see her." The chief lifted his ivory staff. "Then we prepare. Send word to her mother. Tomorrow we fix the date." Word leaped from mouth to mouth across Amuko. Children ran with it. Market women tasted it like new palm wine. In Ada's circle, silence fell, heavy and hot. Ifeananya stared at the ground. Oluchi bit a groundnut until it cracked. Nkem whispered, "After all our waiting?" Ada's fingers tapped her calabash, slow and sharp. When the drums started for the evening, joy moved through most houses. But in one courtyard, 7 shadows stretched long, and envy woke like a snake warmed by sun. Ada called her friends to her perfumed courtyard. The air smelled of hibiscus and roasted yam. They sat in a circle with their wrappers neat, but their hearts were ragged. No one spoke at first. Only the snap of groundnuts broke the quiet, little cracks like angry sparks. Ifeananya sighed, "I already sewed my wedding wrapper." Oluchi said, "I gave a diviner kola. He promised Obinna would see me." Obi's laugh was dry. "Promises are smoke." Lolo rubbed her bangles. Nkem twisted a thread loose from her cloth. Chika blinked fast to hide tears. Ada leaned forward, eyes bright and cold. "Listen well. If we cannot have him, neither will she." The words dropped like a stone in a pond. Rings of fear spread. "What will we do?" Lolo asked. Ada's voice softened like honey poured over a knife. "We will be kind. We will smile. We will offer to escort Ngozi to the compound. On the way, the forest will swallow her. We will return and say she ran." Ifeanyanya's hands shook. "It is wrong." Ada held her gaze. "Is it wrong to stop a mistake? A poor girl cannot wear the chief's coral." The circle shifted, weakness bending toward Ada's strong will. One by one, heads nodded. A plan, dark and simple, took breath. As the sun slid down, Ada gave each girl a task. By nightfall the 7 had braided their lie and tied it tight. They went to the edge of the yam fields where the huts grow small and the wind carries red dust. Ngozi's mother's roof rattled like a drum skin. The 7 arrived with smiles bright as river light. They brought kola nuts, dried fish, and soft words polished smooth. "Sister," Ada said, holding Ngozi's hands. "We are happy for you. Let us escort you tomorrow. We know the safest path. We will sing for you." Ngozi's eyes shone. She had never been called sister by girls like these. She poured water for them. She shared roasted plantain. She thanked them until her cheeks hurt from smiling. The 7 asked gentle questions. "What will you wear? What gift will you bring?" Ngozi brought out a small calabash of palm oil she had saved. "For the chief's household," she said. Ifyananya ran her finger along the rim and nodded. Inside their teeth, envy coiled and hissed, then hid again. Ngozi's mother, tired but proud, blessed the girls. "Carry my daughter well," she said. Ada bowed low. "We will guard her like our own eyes." The sun dropped. The 7 left with soft laughter that faded too quickly. When they were gone, Ngozi held the calabash close and dreamed of a wedding dance. In the high branches, the parrot turned its head and watched the path the 7 had taken, as if it knew where it led. Night settled like a dark cloth over the village. In the small hut, Ngozi knelt by her mat while her mother warmed shea oil in her palms. She smoothed it through Ngozi's hair, parting neatly, the way her own mother had done. "My child," she whispered, "walk with clean feet and a clear heart." Ngozi breathed in the soft scent and felt safe. But outside, a wind tugged at the raffia roof, and a parrot screeched once, sharp and strange. The sound ran down Ngozi's spine. She shivered and quickly smiled, not wanting to worry her mother. "I will come back a bride," she said, voice steady. Her mother tied a small charm at Ngozi's waist, a thread with a cowrie shell. "For protection," she said. Ngozi packed her calabash of palm oil, a wrapper, and the song in her chest. She lay down to rest, but sleep came like a thin visitor, in and out, never staying long. Each time she woke, she heard the wind scratch the roof like a warning finger. Before dawn she rose and washed her face. She looked at her hands, hands that worked, hands that hoped. She kissed her mother's brow. Outside, the path was a pale ribbon. Far away, drums were only a memory. Ngozi stepped into the cool dark, not knowing the forest had already opened its mouth. Dawn painted the path gold as the 8 girls set out, wrappers swishing in time with their steps. Mist hung low over the yam leaves. Birds jumped from stalk to stalk, shaking dew like tiny bells. Ngozi walked first, cradling her small calabash of palm oil, a gift for the chief's household. Behind her, Ada kept close, her fingers twitching at her side as if keeping a secret beat. They sang a soft walking song. Ifyananya's voice trembled, but she smiled whenever Ngozi turned. Oluchi pointed out a shortcut, and the line curved off the main track into taller trees. The air cooled. Sunlight broke in pieces on their shoulders. "Careful," Obi said lightly. "Roots can trip you." Lolo laughed, too loud, then looked at Ada and fell quiet. Nkem and Chika walked at the end, glancing back now and then, as if the village itself might call them home. Ngozi felt the forest fold around them like a big green room. "Almost there?" she asked. "Soon," Ada answered, her voice sweet as ripe pawpaw. They crossed a narrow stream and climbed a low ridge. A hawk circled once, high and slow. The song died. Only leaves whispered. The path narrowed to a place where ferns hid the ground. Ada's hand rose and fell, a small signal the others understood too well. The forest changed its voice. Birdsong faded. The air smelled of damp moss, earth, and mushrooms. Ferns pressed in, brushing their calves. Obi moved to Ngozi's side and touched her elbow. "Here," she murmured, eyes on a patch of ground that looked soft and harmless. Ngozi stepped closer, trusting the guidance. The place was an old hunter's pit, cut wide and deep long ago, now half covered by vines and fallen palm fronds. A thin lattice of branches lay across it, dusted with leaves. Ada's gaze flicked from face to face. Everyone understood. "Wait," Ifyananya whispered, panic peeking through her calm mask. Ada's mouth tightened. "Hold your courage," she said, as if kindness lived in her tongue. Lolo shifted behind Ngozi. Oluchi and Kem took small positions, closing space like a net. Chika looked away, tears shining, but her feet did not move. "Is something wrong?" Ngozi asked, gentle and open. She lifted her calabash a little higher to keep it safe from the brush. The forest held its breath. Even the hawk above seemed to stop circling. Ada's fingers twitched again. Obi nodded once. In that tight, green silence, the plan felt like a wall built around a single door. All they needed to do was push. The ferns trembled though no wind moved them. The earth waited. It happened the way a cloth tears, fast, shocking, final. A sharp shove struck Ngozi between the shoulders. Her gasp snapped the quiet. The ground gave way beneath her feet. Branches cracked. Leaves flew. She dropped through the hidden mouth of the pit, the world spinning green and brown. She fell onto damp earth, knees and palms scraping, breath knocked from her chest. Her calabash hit a rock and burst. Palm oil streaked the pit wall like gold tears. Ngozi tried to stand, but the clay was slick. Vines clawed her arms. Above, the circle of sky looked small and far. "Ngozi," she cried to herself, as if saying her own name could pull her up. She reached toward the light. Shadows moved over the rim, 7 faces, quick and pale. For one heartbeat she thought they would help. Then branches slid back across the opening, hands laying them like mats. Leaves whispered down. "Please." Ngozi called, voice shaking. "Sisters?" No answer. Only Ada's hush, go, and footsteps brushing away like a broom across sand. The smell of earth grew thick. Tears burned her eyes, but she swallowed them. She pressed her hand to the cowrie at her waist. "Ancestors, see me," she whispered. From somewhere in the trees, hyenas laughed, thin and cruel, as the last sliver of sky narrowed. The 7 hurried to a clear stream and knelt, sleeves pushed high. They washed their hands again and again, scrubbing at nothing, pretending to rinse off mud that was not on their skin but in their hearts. The water ran cool over their fingers, carrying away shaking that would not stop. "Listen," Ada said, voice low and firm. "We tell one story." Ngozi grew afraid. She turned back in the bush. "We searched. We could not find her. We came straight here." Ifyananya practiced tears in the water's reflection, letting her face fold and open like a small storm. Lolo lifted her chin to look noble. Oluchi tested a sigh that sounded tired, not guilty. Nkem memorized the order of words. Chika stared at her shaking hands until they obeyed. Obi timed her breathing with the stream, slow and even. "Say nothing extra," Ada warned. "No pity, no anger. Just sadness. People believe sadness." She lifted her hands from the water and let drops fall like tiny bells. "We speak for each other." They stood, wrung their wrappers, and swallowed their fear. Ada led them back to the path, stepping wide of the fern bed, careful to leave no sign. The forest seemed to listen as they passed. Somewhere behind them, a parrot screeched once, harsh and accusing, and then the leaves closed again. The chief's compound shone with color and sound. Masquerades leaped in swirling cloth. Drums pounded like thunder rolling down a hill. Smoke from roasting goat rose sweet into the blue. Elders sat in lines, beads bright. Children chased each other between stools, laughing. The 7 entered with slow steps and veils that hid their eyes. Ada's voice carried just enough to reach the right ears. "Ngozi grew afraid," she said. "She ran into the bush. We searched, but she did not return. We came with heavy hearts. A hush fell like a cloth over the noise. Obinna rose from his carved stool, joy and worry wrestling in his face. You left her? He asked, voice tight. We could not find her, Obi added softly, as rehearsed. Ifyananya's tears slid down on cue. Lolo looked steady, like a witness. The chief tapped his ivory staff once. Send men to the forest, he ordered. Runners sprang away. The drummers faltered, then kept a slow beat that felt like fear. Aunties looked at each other with wide eyes. Market women began to whisper in little threads that tied across the yard. Obinna stared at the compound gate as if he could pull Ngozi through by will alone. A cloud crossed the sun. In that brief shade, a question grew in his heart and would not leave. Why does sorrow smell like a lie today? Night pressed on Ngozi like wet cloth. The pit smelled of old leaves and clay. When she tried to stand, her legs shook and slid. She touched her knees, skin was scraped, warm and stinging. Above, the sky was a narrow coin. She called once, twice. The forest gave back only her own voice, smaller each time. Cold crept in. She rubbed her shoulders and whispered the names of her ancestors, one by one, like stepping stones across a dark river. She tested the wall with her fingers. It was slick with clay and roots. She tried to climb. A root broke, she fell hard, breath bursting from her chest. Tears pricked, but she swallowed them. Crying will not build a ladder, she told herself. A hyena laughed far away. Night insects clicked like tiny drums. Ngozi found the cowrie charm at her waist and held it. Mother, I am not lost, she said softly, as if her words could travel. She gathered leaves into a thin bed to lift her back from the cold ground. Hours stretched thin. Once, she thought she heard feet, but it was only wind in the ferns. Her mind pulled up faces, her mother's gentle eyes, Obinna by the river, the 7 friends with bright smiles that now burned like pepper. I will not die here, she said to the dark. I will be seen. Near dawn, a lantern glow moved between the trees like a small moon. Ibuka the hunter came with snares on his shoulder and a machete at his side. He paused, head turned, listening the way hunters listen, with his ears and with the soles of his feet. A thin sound rose from the earth, not animal, not wind. A human cry. He stepped toward the old pit, swept aside fern and branches, and froze. A mud-streaked face looked up, eyes wide but steady. By the gods, he breathed. Child, hold on. He tied his rope to a tree root, tested the knot, and lowered the line. Can you grip? Ngozi wiped her palms on her wrapper and caught the rope. Twice she slipped. On the third try she found a knot, then another. Ibuka braced and pulled, muscles tight as bowstrings. Inch by inch, she rose. Her feet scraped the wall, clay smearing her shins. At the rim, Ibuka reached down, locked her wrists in his hands, and hauled her up onto the leaf mat. They both lay still, panting. Then Ibuka sat and looked at her face, at the broken nails, at the cowrie thread. This was no accident, he said quietly. Ngozi's mouth shook. My friends. He lifted his cloak from his pack and wrapped it around her. You are safe now. My hut is close. Fire, water, clean cloth. After that, we will decide. Ibuka's hut was small, framed with palm ribs and thatched thick against rain. Smoke curled from the hearth, sweet and warm. He helped Ngozi sit on a low stool and set water to boil. Drink slowly, he said, passing a calabash. The first swallow felt like life returning to her bones. He washed her scrapes with water and crushed leaves, hands gentle and sure. I am Ibuka, he said. Hunter of this forest. I do not often rescue brides. A corner of her mouth lifted. I am Ngozi. I was on my way to the chief's compound. He roasted plantains, split them, and spread a bit of honey. She ate, hunger waking with each bite. Color returned to her cheeks. He gave her a clean wrapper and hung her mud-stained cloth near the door. "Rest a little," he said. "The forest watched you and called me." Ngozi's eyes closed for a short sleep that felt long enough to mend a small piece of her. When she woke, sun had climbed the trees. Strength had climbed back into her legs. She stood carefully. "I must go back," she said. "They lied. They will dance while I am counted as lost." Ibuka nodded. "Truth must walk on its own feet. I will walk beside it." He packed his rope, lifted his staff, and opened the door. Fresh air came in, carrying the scent of leaves washed clean. Morning mist lifted from the yam fields like breath. Ngozi stepped onto the path with Ibuka at her side. Her limp was small now, steadier with each step. He had tucked a wildflower behind her ear, yellow as early sun. "For courage," he said. She touched it and smiled, a thin, brave smile that belonged to someone who had fallen and risen. They moved through green tunnels of leaves. Birds returned to their songs. The forest that had been a mouth felt like a friend again. Ibuka cut a branch to make her a walking stick. "Lean when you need to," he said. "Pride can rest, courage can stand." They passed the stream where the seven had washed false sorrow from clean hands. The water looked innocent, but Ngozi felt her stomach twist. "Do not borrow their shame," Ibuka said quietly, reading her face. "Let them carry it." At the low ridge, he paused and searched with his eyes. Hunters see what others miss: a scuff, a turned leaf, a careless print. He saw the careful prints of 7 girls who had tried to leave no mark. "We will leave our own," he said, and led her on. When village roofs showed like brown shells through the trees, Ngozi's breath came fast. Fear and hope raced side by side. "You must face them," Ibuka said again. She nodded. "I will speak. Let the drums hear me." The chief's gate rose tall, carved with stories of old hunts. 2 guards leaned their spears and argued softly about goats. When they saw Ngozi, they straightened so fast a spear nearly fell. One guard's mouth opened and would not close. "By the spirits," he whispered. "It is her. News runs faster than goats." Whispers flew into the courtyard. People turned. Women froze mid-stir. Drummers missed a beat, then found it again with trembling hands. Children edged forward. Elders shaded their eyes. Obinna stood from his carved stool like a man waking from a bad dream. He took one step, then another, eyes on Ngozi's face, on the mud marks that had not fully washed away, on the yellow wildflower bright by her ear. Relief and anger flashed across him like sun and cloud. Ngozi stopped in the center of the yard. Ibuka stood beside her, quiet as a tree. The 7 friends were near the elders, their veils lifted now. Ada's fingers tightened on her wrapper. Ifeanyi went pale. Chika's lips moved in a prayer that had come too late. The chief tapped his ivory staff once. The sound carried like thunder rolled thin. "Speak," he said. Ngozi lifted her chin. "Fathers, mothers, people of Umuko," she said, voice steady. "Hear me. The forest tried to bury a lie today. It failed." The courtyard held its breath. A parrot screeched in the kola tree, sharp as a drum call to truth. The courtyard became a storm. Voices rose. Feet shifted. The air felt tight, like a drum pulled hard. Ngozi told her story, piece by piece, so no lie could hide. She spoke of the path at dawn, of the shortcut, of ferns hiding a hunter's pit, of the sudden shove, of branches laid across the light. She told of cold clay, of calling, of silence. She spoke of Ibuka's rope and hands that pulled her back to sun. People gasped. Aunties shook their heads and clicked their tongues. Market women hissed like hot oil. Children leaned forward with big eyes. The 7 fell to their knees, wrappers rustling like frightened wings. Ada lifted her face quickly. "She lies," she said. Fear made her run. She returned alone and now blames us. Ifyananya's shoulders shook. We searched, she whispered, eyes on the ground. Lolo tried to look strong, but her lip trembled. Obi folded her hands and stared past everyone, as if the sky could save her. Nkem swallowed. Chika shut her eyes and prayed without words. Obinna stepped to Ngozi's side. I know her voice, he said, quiet and fierce. It is a voice that does not bend. Ibuka bowed his head once. I saw the pit, he added. I saw a careful prince of 7 who wished to leave none. The chief raised his hand. Sound fell. Even the birds on the kola tree paused. Judgment was coming. The chief sat straighter on the raised stool. His ivory staff tapped the ground once, twice. The courtyard stilled, as if the air itself obeyed him. He looked at Ngozi, then at the 7. His eyes were old river stones. Cool, steady, deep. Truth walks on 2 legs, he said. We will make it walk. He ordered the 7 separated to different corners of the yard. No whisper could pass between them. He chose elders with ears sharp from long years of listening. Each elder took 1 girl aside. The rest of us waited, hearts counting beats with the slow drums. Ngozi stood calm, hands folded. Obinna did not touch her, but his nearness felt like a promise. Ibuka watched the gate, hunter still. Aunties muttered proverbs under their breath, a lie has no basket, it spills. Jealousy cooks with dry firewood, smoke gives it away. The elders returned one by one, faces unreadable. They whispered to the chief. He asked a new question. They went back again. This was not a rush. Truth does not run, it walks. Soon, small cracks showed. Ifyananya's story did not match Lolo's. Obi forgot a detail she had practiced. Nkem added a word that Ada had not taught. Chika's tears washed lines through her powder. Ada kept her chin high, but a muscle jumped in her jaw. The chief nodded slowly. Bring the oath drum, he said. A murmur rolled through the people like wind through raffia. 4 men carried the sacred oath drum from the shrine, careful as if lifting a sleeping child. Its skin was dark, smooth, and old. White chalk marks ringed its rim. It is struck only when words must stand before ancestors. We made room. The kola tree threw a round shade like a crown on the ground. The chief lifted chalk and drew a line across the earth. Who crosses this line and lies will carry sickness on their tongue, he said. Who speaks truth will walk free. His voice was not loud, but it carried to corners and doorways and even to the goats tied near the fence. He called Ifyananya first. She stepped, shaking. The drummer lifted 2 sticks and struck, one deep boom that made ribs hum. Ifyananya tried to talk around her sobs, but the story came out broken. A shortcut, a shout, a fall she did not see, fear that turned her feet to stone. She covered her face and fell back from the line. Lolo came. The drum spoke again. Her words slid and slipped. Obi's voice was flat, but her eyes betrayed her. Nkem named ferns that did not grow where she claimed. Chika crossed the chalk, said, "Forgive me," and could not say more. Ada last. She stood tall. The drum beat slow. She ran, Ada said. The drum answered with a hollow echo that felt wrong in the chest. Silence pressed close. Even Ada's breath sounded like a lie. The chief's gaze moved to the shrine. 2 masked spirits, ancestors' faces carved and painted, were brought to sit by his stool. Their eyes were wide and patient. The air cooled, the way it does when rain is thinking. We have heard, the chief said. We have watched the drum judge breath. He called the elders. They spoke in low voices. He nodded, the old beads at his neck clacking softly. Then he stood, slow but strong. Jealousy dug a pit, he said. It tried to bury a daughter of this land. The earth refused. The hunter refused. We also refuse. He named the 7. You are banished beyond the river's boundary. For one farming season you will not step on a Muko soil. You will carry no beads, no titles, no claims. You will work where strangers tell you. You will return with humility or not at all. Ada's lips pulled tight. She bowed only because her knees gave way. Ifeananya wept openly. Lolo stared at her empty wrists as if bracelets might grow back. Obi's mouth twisted. Nkem clung to Chika, whose shoulders shook with deep, broken sounds. The masquerades rose, rattles singing, and herded the 7 through the gate. Women hissed softly, men looked down. Children watched with round, silent eyes. The chief turned to Ngozi. You were pushed, he said. You did not fall. Stand in the sun. She stepped forward. Light found her face. The courtyard breathed again. When the gate closed behind the 7, the drums found a brighter beat, careful at first, then strong. The chief called Ibuka to the elders' row. The hunter walked with quiet feet, as if the ground were still listening. The chief took his wrist, palm to palm, and lifted it for all to see. This man watched the forest and answered, he said. Courage and kindness sat together in his house. A horn cup of palm wine was brought, froth shining at the rim. The chief touched it to the earth, then to the sky, then placed it in Ibuka's hands. Drink. Ibuka sipped and bowed his head. Women ululated, high and sweet. Boys shouted his name. Obinna stood tall. He faced Ibuka. You saved my bride, he said. You saved my joy. Ibuka smiled a little. I only pulled on a rope. She climbed. Ngozi met his eyes with grateful warmth. You will eat at my wedding, she said. First cup, first meat. Gifts came, a new goatskin, a fine knife, a length of cloth dyed deep indigo. The praise singer stepped forward and called Ibuka's names, rope bringer, pit finder, walker of true paths. Laughter rose, light now. The shadow had lifted. But joy did not make memory forget. The people moved gently around Ngozi, like hands around a new pot. The chief raised his staff once more. Prepare the wedding, he said. Let truth be dressed in gold. The drums answered with a promise. Ngozi went first to the small hut at the edge of the yam fields. Her mother met her at the doorway, hands to her mouth, eyes full. They held each other a long time, breathing like people who had crossed deep water. My child, her mother said, oiling her hair with slow, careful hands, the earth tried to hide you, but the sky would not allow it. They laughed through tears. Ngozi told the story again, softer now, the early path, the pit, the hunter's rope, the judgment. Her mother listened without blinking, as if each word must find a safe home. You walked with a clean heart, she said at last. She rubbed scented oil along Ngozi's arms and tied a fresh thread with 2 cowries at her waist. Double blessing, she whispered. A parrot screeched from the raffia roof, not harsh this time but bright, as if agreeing. Neighbors came with smiles and short songs. Women brought wrappers to lend, beads to share, small gifts that mean, we are with you. Before leaving, Ngozi swept the floor, set water to warm for her mother, and fixed the cooking stones just right. I will come back tonight, she promised. Her mother nodded. Go in peace. Let joy stand where fear stood. Outside, afternoon light lay gentle on the path. The village breathed easier. News had changed shape, not a girl lost, but a girl restored, and a mother whose hands smelled like hope. The square throbbed with happy work. Tailors bent over cloth dyed indigo and gold. Needle points flashed like little fish in a river. Drummers tested skins, then tuned them until the beat felt like a steady heart. Children threaded yellow alamanda into long chains that turned the paths into bright roads. Aunties argued in smiles over head ties and coral beads. This one lifts the face, one said. That one holds the head like a crown, another replied. Laughter spilled as easily as palm wine. The praise singer warmed his voice, calling practice names for the bride and groom: calm water, true staff, eyes that see fair. Ngozi sat with quiet joy while two cousins braided her hair into clean rows, then wrapped a soft cloth around her shoulders. She touched the wildflower behind her ear. Ibuka had brought a fresh one. He stood at the edge of the bustle, speaking little, making sure small problems stayed small, fetching water, shifting stools, helping an old man sit. Obinna brought gifts to Ngozi's mother: a basket of yam, a jar of honey, salt, and good cloth. He bowed. Thank you for your daughter, he said. Thank you for your son, she answered, smiling wider than she had in years. As the sun slid toward evening, the square changed from work to waiting. Drums slowed to a soft call. Smoke rose straight up. The kola tree shook once in a light wind, as if it, too, wished to see joy done well. Moonlight washed the kola tree in silver. The people gathered in a wide ring, faces bright, beads catching light like stars trapped on necks and wrists. Obinna stepped forward first, wearing a simple white cloth and a steady gaze. Ngozi followed, voice low as she greeted elders and the earth itself. The praise singer called their names so the night would remember: Obinna, who chose with clear eyes; Ngozi, whose heart stood when the ground fell. Drums answered, deep and kind. A child giggled, the sound shook free the last bits of fear in the air. Obinna took Ngozi's hand. The chief lifted his staff. Let truth be joined to truth, he said. He poured a little palm wine on the soil. For those who walked before us. He placed kola in their palms. They broke and shared it, sweet and bitter at once, like life. Ibuka watched from the edge, smiling the way a quiet man smiles when a hard thing ends well. Women ululated, high peals that made even old men grin. Friends lifted songs, telling what had happened so no one could twist it later. Pit closed. Rope lowered. Girl rose. Lie broke. Obinna leaned close and spoke a promise only Ngozi heard. She answered with one of her own. Their hands did not shake. When the drums leaped, the square moved as one body, feet stamping, dust rising, moonlight turning every brow into a river of light. Across the river, night tasted different. The seven walked with heads low and beads gone, crossing into villages where no one knew their names. Work found them quickly, pounding millet, fetching water, weeding fields that did not care about pride. Ada kept her back straight, but the straightness cost her. By the small fires where strangers eat, their story leaked out in pieces. Ifyananya cried before sleep and woke with wet lashes. Lolo tied cloth tighter and spoke less. Obi stared long at her hands, as if asking why they had obeyed a bad plan. Nkem picked at her food, then learned to finish it. Chika prayed out loud now, naming her own faults by name. Sometimes they heard scraps of news floating across the river, drum patterns that travel, a traveler's laugh, a praise line that reached even there, the girl who rose. Ada lay awake and listened. The words she had used to command her friends returned to her as stones in the mouth. Work changed them. Blisters where bracelets had been. Strong backs where pride had lived. In the quiet, each girl met her own face and did not look away. Some turned hard. Some turned humble. All counted days. When the moon grew thin again, they stood at the water's edge and watched Muko's fires far off. The wind did not carry their names back. It carried a lesson that stung and healed at the same time. 33 weeks later the village square rested in warm light. Evening talk rose and fell like a calm tide. Children gathered near the kola tree where the storyteller sat with a staff and a soft smile. I sat close too, because I am the one telling you this tale. We wanted the ending told right. He spoke the story as the drums breathed behind him, a moonlit river, a choice that woke envy, a path that turned dark, a pit that opened, a rope that held, a village that listened, and a truth that walked on two legs until it stood in the sun. People nodded at the parts they knew and leaned in at the parts they had not heard. When he reached the end, he lifted a palm and gave the last proverb: jealousy digs a pit, but the earth throws back the innocent. The children gasped and clapped. Aunties hummed yes. The kola tree rustled like a witness signing its name. Ngozi and Obinna passed by hand in hand, greeting softly. Ibuka followed with a small smile and a bigger piece. The drums faded to a heartbeat. Night settled kindly. The story, now carried by many mouths, left the square like a lantern that will not go out. The story you have just heard is a beautiful African tale I heard long ago, teaching us about envy, courage, and the power of telling the truth even when it costs you. If you were Ada or one of the seven, what would you do now? Would you choose jealousy that harms, or would you choose humility, confess, and celebrate another's joy? I want to know your opinion because every story is like a candle that can light the path for someone else. God bless you, and may courage guide your hands. Meanwhile, on the final screen, I am leaving you with one of the channel's most beloved folktales. I am sure it will surprise you. Thank you for staying with me until this moment.